I left my first wife because I thought I deserved better. I was 41 years old. I had a specific picture of what better looked like. I was confident in the way that only a man who has not yet learned the cost of his own certainty can be confident. 20 years later, sitting alone in an apartment at 61, I understood what I had actually left and what I actually deserved. And those two things were not what I had thought they were. My name is Vincent. I am 78 years old. I have been married twice and divorced twice. I have 2 adult children from my first marriage who have the complicated, careful relationship with me that children tend to develop with a father who left. I am not a bad man. I want to say that clearly, not as a defense but as a context. I am an ordinary man who made choices that seemed reasonable at the time and that I have spent decades understanding more clearly. And what I understand now, what I want to give to you as a man who has been on the other side of the insight I am about to share, is something about marriage and love, and the specific kind of mistake that confident people make most often. The mistake of confusing dissatisfaction with the wrong choice. I want to ask you something about whatever relationship you are in right now, or if you are not in one, about the relationships you have been in. Think about the moments of dissatisfaction, the moments when you looked at your partner and felt not love, not warmth, but a quiet, persistent sense that something was missing, that this was not quite right, that somewhere there was a version of this that was better. Most people in long relationships have those moments. Most people in committed relationships experience periods, sometimes extended periods, of feeling disconnected, frustrated, unfulfilled. And in those moments, a question appears, usually quietly, sometimes loudly. Is this the right person? That question feels like an honest evaluation, like a legitimate assessment of a real situation. But I want to suggest to you from the vantage point of a man who answered that question incorrectly and spent decades understanding why that the question itself is usually the wrong question, because the dissatisfaction that generates it is almost never about the wrong person. It is almost always about the wrong version of yourself that is showing up in the relationship. My first wife's name was Diane. We married when we were 27. She was a kind woman, genuinely kind, in a way that was consistent and real rather than performed. Practical, warm, deeply committed to our family. A good mother, long before she was one, in the way some people are naturally nurturing, attuned, present. For the first 8 years, the marriage was good, not extraordinary, but solid, warm, genuinely loving. And then, in my mid-30s, something happened. I became successful. Not dramatically, gradually. My career accelerated in ways that changed my sense of myself. I earned more, was recognized more, moved in wider circles. The version of myself that had married Diane at 27 began to be replaced by a newer version, more confident, more ambitious, more certain of his own value in the world. And in that transition, I started to experience Diane differently. She had not changed, but I had. And the version of me that was emerging looked at the life we had built together and found it insufficient, not terrible, not unhappy, just smaller than I now felt I deserved. The word I used to myself was incompatibility, a mismatch that had not been apparent when we were younger, but that was now clearly limiting. What I was actually experiencing was the specific, recognizable discomfort of a man who has changed in ways his relationship has not yet accommodated, whose growth, real or imagined, has created a gap between who he now believes himself to be and what his daily life reflects back at him. I met a woman at 40 who seemed to reflect the new version of me more accurately, more exciting, more aligned with the life I now wanted, more as I told myself on my level. I left Diane. It was painful. The children were 9 and 12. The aftermath was everything you might imagine. I married again at 43. The second marriage lasted 11 years and ended in a divorce that was, if anything, more painful than the first. And sitting alone at 61, in an apartment, having coffee on a Sunday morning, I did something I should have done 20 years earlier. I thought honestly about what I had left, not about Diane's failures or the reasons the relationship had felt insufficient, about what I had actually left, what had actually been there underneath the dissatisfaction that I had not seen clearly. A woman who knew me, really knew me, the version before the success and the confidence and the certainty of my own importance, who had loved that version and would have grown with it if I had given her the chance. A family, not a perfect one, but a real one, built over years, with the specific texture of a shared life that cannot be manufactured or replaced. A partnership that had, like all long partnerships, become less exciting in the way that genuinely familiar things do, but that had been becoming, slowly and almost invisibly, something more valuable, something deeper. The kind of knowledge of another person that only comes from time. I had left because I confused the natural evolution of long love, the shift from excitement to depth, from novelty to genuine knowing, with the wrong choice. I had confused the discomfort of growth with the discomfort of a mistake, and by the time I understood the difference, Diane had rebuilt her life without me. She remarried at 48, a good man by all accounts. She seemed genuinely happy when I encountered her occasionally over the years. I am glad for her, and I am honest about what my choices cost. I want to talk about what I now understand about long-term love, because I think it is one of the most misrepresented things in modern life. We are sold a story about love that is organized around feeling. The right relationship feels a certain way. It feels exciting, resonant, alive. When it stops feeling that way, when the excitement fades, when the novelty is gone, when the person across the table is deeply familiar rather than compellingly new, we are culturally trained to read that as a sign that the feeling is gone, that the love has run its course, that it is time to look elsewhere for the feeling. This is one of the most expensive stories in circulation, because the feeling, the excitement, the novelty, the electricity of early love is not sustainable over the long arc of a shared life. Not because the love is insufficient, because that is simply how human neurology works. The brain habituates. The extraordinary becomes ordinary. The person who was once a discovery becomes a companion. And that shift, that inevitable, biological, completely predictable shift, is not the death of love. It is the beginning of a different kind of love. A deeper one. The love that knows your history, that has seen you at your worst and stayed. That does not need you to be impressive, because it has chosen you in full knowledge of who you actually are. That love does not feel like early love. It feels like something quieter, less dramatic, more like a room you live in than a feeling you chase. And many people trained by the cultural story of love as feeling mistake that quietness for absence. They mistake depth for emptiness. They leave to chase the feeling, and they find it again, for a while, in someone new, and it fades again, as it always does. And they are left wondering why the feeling never stays. It never stays because feelings don't stay. People stay. And the person who has stayed with you through the years, who knows you in the accumulated, irreplaceable way that only time creates, that person is not the absence of the feeling. That person is the thing the feeling was pointing toward. I figured that out too late to do anything about it. I hope you figure it out earlier. Here is the deeper thing I want to say. I did not leave Diane because she was the wrong person. I left because I was not yet the person who could appreciate what she was. The version of me at 41, ambitious, newly successful, certain of his own importance, was not capable of recognizing the specific, rare value of what I had. Not because I was stupid, because I had not yet experienced what it costs to lose it. Experience is the only teacher of certain things. You cannot understand the value of depth until you have left it for excitement and found out what excitement costs. You cannot understand the value of being known until you have traded it for novelty and discovered how lonely novelty actually is. You cannot understand what a long marriage is until you have walked away from one and spent years building towards something similar and discovered that the years, the specific, irreplaceable years of shared life, cannot be reconstructed. They have to be lived forward. They cannot be found somewhere else. The person I am now at 78, alone, with 2 marriages behind me and a clear understanding of what I walked away from, would have stayed. Would have found a way to grow within the marriage rather than out of it. Would have understood that the dissatisfaction I felt was information about what I needed to work on in myself, not a verdict on the relationship. But I was not that person at 41, and understanding the specific limitations of the version of myself that made that choice is the most honest work I have done. If you are in a long relationship that has settled into something quieter than it once was, I want to say something directly to you. Before you interpret that quietness as a verdict, ask yourself one question. Is this relationship insufficient? Or am I? Not as a self-accusation, as a genuine inquiry, because the work of a long relationship, the real, ongoing, demanding work, is not finding the right person and then being done. It is continuing to show up as a growing, curious, genuinely present person within the relationship. It is asking the questions that go beneath the surface. It is maintaining the curiosity that keeps another person visible rather than familiar. It is doing the individual work of becoming the person your relationship deserves, rather than waiting for your relationship to become something you deserve. That work is harder than leaving, but it is the only work that leads somewhere real. I know, because I chose the other thing, and I know what that choice looks like from the far end of it. Do the harder work. Tell me in the comments, have you ever confused the natural deepening of a relationship with something being wrong? And looking back, what do you think it was actually telling you? Not about the relationship, about yourself, because that is usually where the real answer is.